as it was said, the campaign of boycott, disinvestment, and sanction, it is not an anarchic invention by the Palestinians. It is within international law and legality as it was written and articulated by United Nations. By the way, if we look around, we see that BDS, the boycott, the divestment, and the sanction, this is a very banal, very common action among states. You know, there are more than 30 countries today which are on the list of boycott by European Union. There are few dozens of countries which are under boycott or sanction by United Nations, and many others by the United States. And the reasons for this, for the boycott by states, the reasons of disinvestment by state, it is because it's considered as a highly efficient tool of pressure on states. But if we look at the states which are under sanctions, we look at the states which are under the divestment, we will find strangely that Israel is not part of this list. And the reasons are many and complicated, and I won't develop. And as it was said, in the moment that states do not take responsibility and they not use the political tool that they use in many cases, here comes the role of the civil society, of us. Here comes the role of people and citizens in order to impose what our own states are not doing. And I can assure you one thing, if our states, if European Union would use the tool of sanction, use the tool of divestment, we as a civil society can retreat. We can make even a promise. In the day that you impose sanctions, you know, I'm talking about states, we will stop our campaign. Let me now move to concentrate on the question that was asked, which is, what is the difference between censorship and boycott? I think that the first element is that censorship is a tool which is always used when it's used by power. It's never the tool of powerless. And we are the powerless in this situation. Power uses censor in order to silence the possibility of denouncing the action of power itself. This is what is censorship. Censorship is about silencing the ones that are threatening the power. And if we think about censorship, there is a huge censorship today. There is a huge censorship on the Palestinian voice. There is censorship on the Palestinian solidarity. There are laws in many countries that do not allow to demonstrate in this way, or that is using intellectual terror, which is accusing the movement of solidarity with Palestine of anti-Semitism. Those are measures of censorship, which means that as long as we do not have the power, whatever we are doing never can be considered in censorship. It's considered of what? Well, in our case, we are talking about boycott. And it was said, the boycott is under a leadership of the Palestinian civil society, which articulated the modalities of boycott through something which is called the guidelines. And they're very precise guidelines, which explain exactly what are the modalities of boycott, when we can boycott, and when we are not allowed to boycott. One of the principles is, and this is another argument about the difference between censorship of boycott, which is the question of cultural content does not regard the boycott campaign. It's not about the question if this film is a nice, good film that supports the Palestinian or denounce occupation, etc. It's not even if this film, to take the example of film, is a racist film. We are not talking about cultural content, we're talking about modalities of production, which means that the question is, what are the modalities of cultural production? And here we have two ways. One of the things is that we consider within the boycott campaign that taking money from a government that is giving on one side money to buy bullets and bombs, and in the same time gives money for cultural production, this is already a mode of complicity. It is a mode of complicity. It is a mode of complicity because it blurs the distinction between cultural production and warfare production, which means that the same government that will give the bombs, will buy the bombs, the same government that sent hundreds of thousands of Israeli soldiers today to a genocidal campaign or to an ethnic cleansing campaign, what is going on in the West Bank, for example, in the occupied territories of the West Bank, this same government gives money for cultural production. And we can come in to say, why this government, that on one hand is a genocidal, racist, an apartheid regime as it was declared by the International Court, and it's not Eyal Sivan's opinion, it's about international legality. Why this government on one hand finance a genocide, a colonial regime, and on the other hand gives money to cultural products, and let's speak about cinema, that many of us will say, but if we look about the Israeli cinema, is mainly kind of a critique cinema, is a kind of a self-critique cinema, is a cinema of good people. Well, we do not care. The question is not about being a good person within the cultural product, is about the question of taking position as a citizen, because we do not separate the question of being citizen and being filmmaker. I won't give the example of Leni Riefenstahl, for example, great filmmaker and a great Nazi person. This separation between the person and the artist, this is exactly a modality that allows to Israeli filmmakers to be soldiers in the morning and filmmakers against occupation in the afternoon. The engagement is not a question of the engagement in the content of the film. The engagement is the engagement of the ethics of production. And let me allow to quote Jean-Luc Godard, which is saying the question is not about making a political film, but it is about making films politically.